Welcome to the 1 Minute Barber. I'm here with Dave Simpson from Simply Sharp. He's my scissor sharpening guy. He does an amazing job and he's going to show us today a little bit about how scissors are sharpened.
So we'll just disassemble the shears in preparation for sharpening. A lot of people think sharpening is basically just cutting the edge, but the whole process is each part is equally important. And we'll just take this apart and save the contents of this pivot screw. We'll put that somewhere safe, because these do have a habit of disappearing. Now we clean the scissors. You mentioned earlier that you use clipper side. I use just isopropyl alcohol, which is as good a disinfectant as any.
Okay.
So having cleaned the blade, then we will address the inside edge of the blade. And depending on the style of scissors and what it's used for, you may want to use different grits of stone to achieve the results from a rough grainy edge to a highly polished edge, just depending on what you're trying to achieve.
And what are the grits on the stone?
I'm using 5000 at the moment.
Okay.
Which is in between. This was a very good cutting edge at 5000 grit, and it gives a nice polish to the edge. This is generally about the grit that you will get when you receive a new scissors.
What was that stuff you sprayed on the stone there?
That was water with a little bit of release agent to capture any grit.
Okay.
That may come off the stone. You can use water, but if you use something like a detergent or that as well, it actually helps slide easier and it will lift any dirt to save the stone getting full of dirt.
Okay.
And that is a nice polished edge on that scissors. And we'll do that again at the end of the process.
Okay.
And we always clean any excess off the stone. Just marking this so I know where to start the edge from. Right, so there's a convexing clamp, which is specifically needed for the Japanese edge style scissors.
A convexing clamp.
Yeah, because
okay.
you convex the scissors.
Okay.
We'll just check the angle. Yep, it's a nice angle where it. Yep. So what we'll do is we'll sharpen the edge and then work through the different grits of silicon carbide discs.
Silicon carbide.
Yeah.
And that's you're looking to get a finer and finer grit each time, right?
Yes. The idea is to raise the bar on the edge. Then to smooth out the scratches to give you a highly polished edge, which gives you the sharpness of a razor.
Okay.
Now obviously this scissors is in very good condition, so it doesn't need that much. But if it were damaged, it may need several processes to go through to remove any deep nicks in it. Mm-hmm. Damage is usually caused by a drop. I would say 8 times out of 10 you'll damage your scissors in a drop and take a nick out of them, especially with a fine edge like this, because the edge is really microns thin. Or when you catch a comb. So catching a comb puts a wider nick on it because you're catching a metal comb. Cutting with a plastic comb tends to lessen the damage, but it will still damage it if you're quite hard. Mm-hmm. And then if you catch a metal comb or drop it, then it's usually needs a major repair.
I had a metal comb once, and you're just asking for trouble with a metal comb.
Yeah, I see that. I can see the damage. I look at a scissors and I know if it's a drop. A drop. As I say, 2 times out of 10 you can get away with a drop depending on your flooring and how the scissors lands. But if it lands and clatters on the edge, then that's usually a big chunk out of it, and it needs significant work to do it. I've had one where the chunk was too big. And I've seen a lot of edge damage during the lockdown period where people had put the scissors in barbicide and left them in for much longer than the 20-minute. I wouldn't.
What a nugget of information, right? So 20 minutes in barbicide.
That's what barbicide recommend in all the certificates. But barbicide, I am a big fan. If you're going to use it, dip, clean, off thoroughly, oil.
So you don't leave your scissors in barbicide.
Well, look at your combs. If you clean your combs in barbicide, look at how the condition of your combs, and you'll see that's what it's doing. It'll soften the metal, and that's it. £600 pair of scissors, or however much you pay for your scissors. That's it.
Right.
Gone.
Wow.
No repair. Bearings gone. Surface is corroded, and once it's that stage, it's basically new scissors.
Wow. Okay.
So what I'm doing now is I'm going to polish the edge of the scissors.
What was that little thing you had there?
That's a polishing compound.
Polishing compound.
It looks a little bit dirty at the moment, but it's well used. But
and what is the compound?
I have no idea. It's a French polishing compound I use. Not French as in French polishing, but it's a French manufacturer.
Okay.
And they get different grades for different finishes, but the blue polish tends to offer the best combination of aggressiveness and shine. Is what you need. You need to take all the scratches off and give a really fine edge. You get much finer polishes which give you a much more glossy finish, but they don't remove the scratches as much, and you get a much coarser colours of polish, yellow, brown, whatever, but they tend to be too coarse.
Okay.
And it all depends on the steel, but I generally tend to use, for hairdressing and barbering scissors, I will use the blue polish. I also have diamond spray, which I use for some types of scissors and some types of steel and some edges. There is no one solution for every scissor and every cutting style.
Okay.
And we repeat the process again.
Repeat the process.
For the other scissors blade. The angle's already set, so we just go.
Yeah. What is that? Is there an optimum angle?
It depends. It depends very much. These scissors could be used in hairdressing. The angle is that shallow that you could slice cut with. If you're doing a lot of blunt cutting, then it's a low angle, probably 30, anything between 35 and 40 degrees. If you've Japanese edge scissors, they tend to be 40 up to anything up to 60 degrees angle.
Okay.
The steeper the angle, it's called a shallow angle, but it's a really steep angle number wise. It will slice through here very easily, but it will blunt quicker. It will damage easier. So there's a trade-off between angle and durability and sharpness.
Okay.
It just depends what you want. But I tend to sharpen scissors at the angle that they come from the manufacturer, because the manufacturer has obviously invested a lot of time and money and research into finding the optimum angle for his style of scissors. Okay. So I tend to just repeat what the angle is from the manufacturer. Again, we use a slow speed. Just to raise the bar of the metal initially, and then we'll gradually use, as I say, finer and finer grits to refine that edge, and the last course is polishing it. Now sometimes it can take a lot longer to do an edge, as I say, if it's a harder steel or if it's gotten damaged, then you may need to do this for significantly longer. Now in my day-to-day travels I do wear a mask, but today I can't talk with a mask on, so
you wear
I just wear a N95 mask, just because if you're doing this all day, that the risk is small, but there is a little dust particles. So I tend to wear a mask just to protect the lungs. But for the purposes, it would be slightly impractical to try and talk to you, Mike.
Yeah.
Now that's the polishing stage. They both look fine. What we'll do now is we will give them a clean, and then we'll run them across the stone again, just to finish that edge off. Yeah, that's a nice edge. And it helps a lot to use these magnifiers.
Okay.
Right, so the stone's still quite cool, because I can see that just congealing on there. Right, so.
So you're going backwards with it?
Only one direction, yeah.
Okay.
Because you don't want to trap metal under it and scratch the edge.
Ah, okay.
And we'll clean that in between. And as I mentioned, when you clean your scissors, regardless of whether they're sharpening or like you clean the blade, always clean from the bottom, especially with these scissors. That edge will cut through a cloth, a chamois leather, a hard piece of leather in an instant and go into your finger.
Aye. Well, I mean, the only thing you really want to cut is hair, right?
Absolutely.
Leave out anything else. Fingers, wood, chamois leather, paper, metal. Just simply for cutting hair. I've heard so many stories of people, they've been out of their salon or their barber shop, and someone's decided to open a delivery. Open a delivery with another barber's scissors, or like they've opened a cardboard box, and there's maybe still some remnant of the brown tape on it.
Yeah, that's a surefire way of ruining the edge of a scissors.
Yeah.
Now, I not so much in barbering, but in hairdressing, I've had to repair quite a few scissors, high-end scissors that were used for cutting extensions, cutting glued extensions.
Oh right, wow. So it's the glue's like solidified and they're trying to cut through the glue.
Absolutely, you actually need to use specific glue remover for that, because once it solidifies, it's really difficult to get off, and it will blunt the scissors very quickly. I'll set the initial drop on there.
What's a good way to set the drop, Dave?
It's all very personal, but I would say if the scissor stops between halfway and a third of the way at the top, that's probably in that range. But I haven't oiled it yet, so once I oil it, I'll reset it again.
It'll loosen up a little when it's oiled.
Well, some of them actually tighten up with the film of the oil. Depends on how the more expensive scissors tend to have a much higher tolerance.
Yeah.
So
I've always I've used that test that you've used, and I normally drop it to the point that it almost closes, but I have seen others using different methods. They maybe don't want it to close as much, but I think sometimes when scissors are getting blunt, you end up needing more tension, right?
Yeah, and that's quite a common. It's actually a mistake. It's okay to tension up 1 or 2 clicks, but I do see when scissors that have been needing sharpened for a while that they keep getting tightened. Now that is a counter effect, and it will work. It will make it cut better for a few cuts, but you're actually damaging the inside edge at that point. It's repairable, but it's not good for your scissors to have them that tight.
Okay.
And again, this is the only time I actually move from the top. I have a thick piece of leather here, just to clean the edge. And this, you have to be very careful with this, because if you're not careful, this will go straight through the leather. And then at that point, we will oil. Just 1 drop of oil each side.
You didn't need to use much at all there.
No, and you can see that now has
moving very freely.
Moving very freely, which is probably too slack for most people. And that's
that was just 1 click, and you just bang on there for me. I mean, that's probably just the tension I would have.
So, and as you use it more, you're going to have to probably adjust it a little bit more. So some people, you can't muggle the scissors, but this is a bearing scissor. This is actually a really good scissors. They use bearings in the pivot rather than plastic washers, which gives a much smoother finish. Now, even the steel, I noticed as soon as I put that on the stone that it's a high-end steel, because it just glides across.
Right.
As opposed to your cheaper steels will actually dig in like brake pads in the stone. Okay. And there's nothing the matter with that. It's just they're a cheaper steel, and they're softer, so they will grind more. Okay. But this type of scissors is made with a decent steel. It's a joy to cut with these and sharpen them, because I can tell with the action that's a really smooth scissors.
Okay.
I'll just check the tips. The tips are okay, and we'll give a test cut on this highly technical piece of test paper here. And that's just gliding through.
Yeah, it looks really sharp.
That's fine, we will just give that, wipe off that on more.
Dave, the first time you sharpened them, like the first cut I did, I went right into my knuckle, like so. And but the thing was, I didn't feel it. It was just so sharp. And now I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but that was how sharp it was.
Yeah, these are a Japanese razor edge. Now I could probably polish this up really highly, but that's a nice edge on that. Just make sure we get off any remnants of anything on there, and that's nicely oiled. So that's now, you can see Sweet. It's just,
yeah,
and adjust to your own taste. And that's it sharpened.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Dave, for all your insight today, and it's fascinating to see how scissors are sharpened and what we need to be looking out for as barbers and hairdressers. Now, Dave also sharpens chef's knives, and if anyone's in Aberdeen, Scotland, around that area, I'll leave a link to Dave's Facebook page down below, and you can give him a shout and he'll put an amazing edge on any of your tools. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.